Bikini, Jordan Brannon. Man, she's getting better and better and better. The conditioning is there, the fullness is there. Jamie DeBernard doing a great job with her. The key question is, can we start moving in into that top 6, top 7 at the Olympia? I believe she can. I'm excited to see what she's going to do.
Good morning, you guys. I have some very exciting news for you.
Even better for me because her food got raised and her steps got dropped and her cardio got dropped, so Drew's life is better now. Sorry.
Well, he just gave you all of that information. That is all included, but what I was gonna say is I get blueberries back in my diet. I'm so happy. So yes, as Drew said, I checked in with Jamie yesterday after 2 refeeds over the weekend, being at the FitBody Fusion Summit, which was amazing, but on my feet all day long, running around like a maniac. So checked in on Monday and I was 125.8 pounds. At that time, Jamie reduced my cardio to just 10K steps a day, so no structured cardio. I was doing 40 minutes of cardio up until that point, and also raised my food a little bit. And then she told me yesterday that if I dropped below 125.5 to check in again. So this morning I woke up and I was 124.8. So I checked in with her again this morning. So she once again raised up my food and reduced my step count to 9K steps a day. So the metabolism at this point is ramping up, which is the perfect spot to be in, being 17 days out from the Arnold. Wow, that is really freaking crazy. I just got goosebumps. So anyway, yes, we're eating good. We're feeling really good. Today we're going to be training glutes. This is also a little bit of a weird week because she did drop out my upper body training. So I'm only training 4 days this week, which is really weird for me. But it's also comes at a really good time because we're super busy with work this week. So anyway, obviously you guys can hear my food is ready. So I'm gonna eat this pre-workout meal now, go train some glutes, and I'll catch up with you guys in a bit. Oh my gosh, I just got the invite for Olympian TV this Friday.
Are we excited? Bring the energy, people!
Podcast. She has a lot of great insight on some of the things that have been brewing in the fitness industry right now, like the new FitBody vision. She's a coach. She has a team. She's just going to be such a great guest. You're going to have to come join us.
I was, and honestly, I really didn't know. My aunt is a physical therapist out in Florida. She owns 3 or 4 on the channel, and I started working with her when I was 13 years old.
It was Jamie.
Yes.
This hallway is 100 steps in each direction, just FYI.
She would know that.
Fun fact.
I wonder how many steps it would be for me.
Nikki,
Probably 200. Yeah.
100 steps.
Yep. Man, here I am, just going to my little Christian school and.
That was my first day in private Christian school.
I thought you were going to say Camp Kalakwa.
What's Camp Kalakla?
Ironically, it's a church camp in Florida, and we both went there. We don't know if we were ever there at the same time, but we're both there.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
It was fun.
Do they have pictures online and stuff?
Of like the camp. I'm sure they do.
Yeah.
We should try and see if you guys went at the same time. That would be really cool.
That'd be so crazy if we did.
It's like the silver string theory. Like the silver string theory.
2024 also. It was Evie, Angelica, and
Tie-ins are literally.
yeah, and the tie-ins.
It's so fucking cold here.
Mm-hmm. Okay, you're talking about the vehicle?
Good, that's good there. Lift. That was perfect. Now release.
Yeah, it's good to be in the gym.
It was kind of hot.
Well, you're not gonna left. Good, much better.
Keep this, but work some of this out.
Okay. Yeah, that's all really,
Because to
really.
me, she
After this one, you gonna do some kickbackies?
Yeah, and then like a calf raise. We're having fun today. And by fun, I mean we're picking our exercises, but still training him.
You gotta go. Standing here, and I thought you were talking to the plant.
Yeah, I am. This is my friend. This is Plant.
Some days it'd be like that. He's not around. And then I like kept talking, I was like, oh,
Do the crossover that we did in push.
yeah, I was just feeling out the 20.
That's way too light, but. Cross. Feel that toe tap at the bottom?
Please raise your hand if you're the person victimized by Shannon Brannon in her kickbacks.
Fuck Shannon Brannon. We hate Shannon. Do you love a Jordan? Hate a Shannon.
into the box.
Pull.
She went 4 for 4.
Yeah. Perfect station.
That's such a fun one. I think I'm tired. All right. Usually at this point, I would say, welcome to the late night with Jordan Brannon, but it is clearly not late night. But anyway, okay, so anyway, I asked you guys last night, I put up a question box for some questions. I got some really great ones, and I have picked out 10 of them to answer for you guys. Some short, some long, but anyway, let's get right into them. So the first one is gonna be, what is your favorite food for a cheat? And there's 3 things that I really crave, like post-show, or if I'm going out to a specific restaurant for a free meal that I want. So a dirty martini with blue cheese olives, a really great glass of red wine, and my favorite wine, if I had to pick one, is King's Row. I love red wine, but if I have to pick one, that's it. And number 3, anywhere with Parmesan truffle fries. I am a huge truffle fan, so post-show, like, that's what I'm looking for. Yeah, that's my favorite kind of cheat food, but I love all foods. I'm a foodie. It just has to be a really great meal that's worth the calories. All right, the second one is macros or meal plan for advanced competitors. Well, my first question back is, what is considered an advanced competitor? That's really a kind of a broad statement, right? And it's very relative. It's so difficult, you know, because it really just depends on the athlete and their mentality. I do think hands down in a prep at the highest level, a meal plan is what's best. Because I do think that as athletes, we're human and we're emotional, and we tend to choose comfort foods and we macro hoard. And let's just be honest, you know, the deeper that we get in prep, we kind of forget things, like the little things like sodium and tracking all together. There's so many athletes. And again, this isn't an advanced athlete. You know, again, what does that mean? We're all going to their MyFitnessPal and they're 6 weeks out and they just forget to track in general. Or they'll come back to me and say, oh shoot, I forgot to log my coffee creamer, or I forgot to log my sodium. So if there's a meal plan, it's a direct line of communication between what the coach wants the athlete to be doing, and it's very, very, very hard to mess it up. Something that I had to do when I got to, you know, the highest level of bodybuilding is put myself on a meal plan. It's something that I kicked and screamed doing, you know, before I did it. I tried to hold on to my macros and my foods that I loved with added sugars for as long as I could. But really when I started to transfer to a meal plan and keep my meals very, very simple is when I started to see the best results. So it's a little bit anecdotal and a little bit of, you know, what works on me. But I would say a meal plan at the advanced competitor, the highest level of competing, is what's going to be great. Now, don't get me wrong. I love macros. I love macro tracking. I'm a huge believer in macros, especially in the off season. But I think there's a time and a place for everything and the why behind things and the goal that you're trying to achieve. All right, this is a really great question. It says, after your bodybuilding career, will you train the same or do you want to try something new? I've been thinking about this question a lot, and it's changing all of the time. I was just having this conversation with Drew and somebody else that was in the car the other day. Anyway, we used to say that when I was done training in Bikini that I would screw around and find out for a year, you know, because with Bikini, we're so limited on what we can do. I haven't done a back squat since college, no knee flexion extension exercises. So, you know, I said, hey, like, just let me a dog off the leash, let me train however I want to, as hard as I want to for a year, and maybe I'd come back and do figure. However, I can't even do a lat spread. It's so hard for me to do a lat spread, and I'm not doing wellness. So I don't really know, you know, would I come back maybe and do Bikini in the future? Maybe, we'll see. I'm not really sure what that's gonna look like. I think it's gonna be kind of a slow transition. You know, I can't go from 100 to 0, if you will. You know, training 5 or 6 days a week at the intensity that I am, and the day that I retire, I step into the gym and just say, all right, well, I'm gonna pull back now. I don't really think that's realistic. I think it'll take me time, you know, to slowly pull back and, understand what I want out of my training again. It's going to be very odd when that day comes to, not really have a specific plan or not have to do a logbook or be able to walk into the gym that day and do whatever feels good to me. Currently when I'm thinking about that makes me a little bit uncomfortable. But I envision that when I get to a point where I'm fully settled in, my retirement, that I'll be at the gym, 3 to 4 days a week of training kind of how I want to at the intensity that I want to, and probably adding in some other things too. I used to love yoga. I've never done Pilates, but I hear it's a great challenge. Just doing other fitness classes. I know that I'm definitely going to be somebody that's still in the bodybuilding space for many years to come. And, I pride myself that when I came into the sport, I was not at my healthiest self. And I keep aging in reverse, if you will, because of, the amount of time and attention that I spend on my health and my wellness. So I think it will take me time to figure out what I want, but obviously I will not be training at this magnitude for a long time due to my age, risk of injury, and things like that. So I don't know, to be continued, but it is something I think about very often. All right, this next question is, what do you think about backstage? Do you have any rituals? So backstage for me, usually we're with our FitBody Fusion family. So, kind of when we get backstage, we all set up our FitBody Fusion blankets and kind of claim a spot, if you will. And while I do love my team and I love, being surrounded by the girls and having their energy around me, I am a very lone wolf backstage. I do like to put my headphones in and play a playlist and kind of really start getting into the zone. When I know I have some time backstage, I'll lay backstage listening to my music, and I really try to just think about me being on stage. I try to, imagine myself walking up the stairs and what it feels like when the lights hit my face and what I want that very first entry pose to feel like. And try to just put myself there mentally so it's, I guess, not as shocking when I get there physically. Obviously, when things start going, we're pumping, we're eating and things like that. I do like to try to be a little bit more prepared backstage because in the pro league, we have usually a very specific time that we go on stage, but things can kind of move rather quickly. So preparing my rice cakes and, whatever I know my pump up meal is going to be, that way, if things do start moving quicker than we expected, I'm ready and I'm not stressed. I like to lay out everything as well, like have my heels, my band and everything. Again, that way when they're not calling us, I'm like, where's my stuff, and forgetting things. So just try to be prepared. When we're in line and we're about to go on stage, at this point, my headphones are out. Usually Drew's right next to me up until the very point that he can. I give him my headphones, and then I just start telling myself really positive affirmations. I'm human, I get nervous, and I care what people think about me. So if I allow myself to dwell on those thoughts, it's a very slippery slope for me and where I go mentally. So I keep telling myself either the same thing over and over again, something that's extremely positive, empowering. Going back to 2020, back in Tampa Pro, when I was still an amateur and I won the overall, my great friend Heather, who owns Premier Alternative Medicine, she was my stage mom. She was there all day. And she kept telling me, tell yourself before your heel hits the stage, you're the baddest bitch on that stage. You're the baddest bitch in the room. And I still remember it to this day. And that's usually the thing that I tell myself, like, you're here, you deserve to be here. You're the baddest girl up there. And that's not to take away from any of the other girls up there. That's only to keep myself pumped up and hyped up. So those are kind of some things that I try to do. And I am very open and transparent with the people around me if they're overwhelming me or if I need my space, and, just to kind of tell them where I'm at. The people that know me know that I kind of like to do my own thing backstage, and I try to do a mix of, hanging with the girls and being by myself, but I am a really, really cerebral athlete. So in order for me to do my best, I do what needs to be done and lock in on myself at that point in time. The next question is, will you be carrying the vlogs through the season? Love them, and I hope that you do. And the answer is yes. Nikki and I had a meeting late last week, kind of about what's going to happen post the Arnold series. Obviously, we're producing a lot of content right now going into the Arnold, 1 video a week and things like that. So we're kind of trying to figure out what it's going to look like, in between, obviously, the Arnold and the Olympia. But the short to that answer is yes, we're going to continue the content. We're going to continue the vlogs. And we would love to, like we always say, continuously, work on trying to give you guys content that you like. Something that we've talked about is kind of transitioning into kind of helping people with their training and training form and being more of a coaching, platform on some of these. But also I know that you guys love to see the day-to-day as well. So we're definitely going to keep those going for you guys. The next one is, what would you say are the 3 top things you should focus on in the off season? All right, so the first thing is, I don't like to say off season so much. I like to say improvement season. And I'm really big on words and their meaning. I think sometimes, especially as amateurs, we think in season, which is usually prep, and off season, which is usually our growing season. And I think that saying the word off season significantly reduces the importance of an improvement season. Do you kind of see how that terminology could be different, off season versus improvement season? In my opinion, improvement season is where the champion is made. And that is actually the time where you should be working with a coach, nailing down variables such as macros and sodium and water, obviously nailing your training and things like that, because all of these things together are where the improvements are made in the improvement season or off season. In my opinion, in season or prep is the easy part. You can get lean, you can diet, and for many of us, we're not making muscular improvements in that time. It's just about getting lean. So what I would say the top 3 things that are most important to focus on in your improvement season are, number 1, nailing the smaller details and variables that are going to set you up for success that next prep. And for most of us, that's our food intake. A lot of the times in improvement season, athletes will say, well, I'm in off season, so I don't really have to track as accurately. I don't really have to follow my meal plan. They also significantly underestimate the amount of calories that they take in at their free meals. I have been a victim of that for many, many improvement seasons where I was really, really good with my macros 6 out of 7 days a week. And then I would go treat myself at my untracked meal. And before you know it, I was 40 plus pounds over my stage weight. And I was like, well, what happened? My untracked meals. So just nailing down those variables to know what works with your pre-post workout meal, how your digestion, what foods affect your digestion the best, sodium, water, etc. Because again, that's the things that's going to accelerate your training, which leads me into number 2, which is obviously your training. This is the time to continue to work with a coach, perhaps even work with an in-person trainer. That way you can really nail down your movement patterns, your activation, your intensity. And again, these 2 things are what's going to actually create the improvements for the next time you step on stage. And number 3, which might be something that people don't think about, is spending time on other areas of your life that you cannot spend time on in prep. So for some people, that's their business or their family or taking vacations. Improvement season is about finding that balance of our hobby and our career and our life and the loved ones, where in prep, those things have to take a back seat. So refilling the cups of your family, your spouse, your kids, whatever, your career, continuing education, working on relationships and building your business, creating webs, etc. So really focusing on your personal life so that you can have that good balance to set you up again for that next prep. You kind of elevate those things during an off season so that when prep hits and these things start to mitigate, you've already kind of created that elevation, if you will, so that it can take a hit, or, I hope that makes sense. Is it better to use compression boots on the same day you train legs or wait until the next day? I actually sent this question over to my bodywork therapist. Okay, she has not responded yet. I would love to hear Kristen's opinion on this. And honestly, I would say both, but this is coming from me who has the boots at home. So I do the boots every day. I could see value in, for the people that have to go to a gym and use them or don't have them at home to use them every day. That's kind of where I'm getting, or where I'm interpreting the question of, if I had to choose one and I had to pay for it, what would you think? I would say that the compression the next day might be best, because at that point you're kind of feeling that fatigue, and it will allow kind of that inflammation, if you will, post-workout to settle in, and then you're utilizing the boots to kind of pump it out, and also it just feels good. But again, that's more of a personal opinion. I do not have any science around that. I could say the same about, doing the boots post legs right away. So if Kristen ends up replying, I'll let you know, because I would like to hear her opinion about that. But again, my response is just from an opinion based. I would say if you had to choose one or the other, I would wait until the next day. The next one is, what is your favorite exercise to activate your glutes pre-workout? So I'll say that my favorite is not actually an exercise, it's foam rolling. So really lengthening and warming up the tissue, if you will. And then to activate the glutes, I would do some banded work. So a banded bridge, for example, a banded side-lying clamshell. Those would be my two if I had to pick. Some sort of like abduction work and some sort of like hip extension work. Yep, those would be my two. All right, this next question is, what has been the toughest prep in your career and what did you learn? I can think on two preps, and they were both hard for different reasons. So the first one that I'm thinking of is 2020, my amateur year. We started prep, I believe, in the beginning of the year, and obviously that's the year of COVID. So my very first coach at the time was really hard on me with really high cardio and super low food, and we would just kind of cruise there for a long time. We were always trying to be the leanest and the hardest on stage. Not saying that that's correct. That's what we were trying to shoot for at the time. And then obviously COVID hit and the world shut down. So I was extremely lean, and we were just waiting for shows to start. We didn't know when we were going to be able to hit shows again. So being, forced to do 2 hours of cardio a day and super low food, barely having any refeeds and not really reversing when we knew that I was, as lean as I was. Again, it was us not knowing at the time the bikini criteria. So that was an extremely hard season. Obviously, that's the season that, we showed up to Tampa Pro, which was the first, amateur and pro show after COVID. We ended up winning the overall. And then from there, we just kept hitting the national circuit. And it was a really, really long season for me. Again, I was just really pushed really hard with really low food for a really long time. And we learned, obviously at the end of that year, 2020 is when I hired Jamie, and I kind of knew something was off, and she kind of, took me under her wing, obviously, and we went into an off season to kind of improve all of the damage that was done from being lean that long. So if there's anybody's watching here and they're like, wow, like that's kind of me, that might be a red flag and something that you need to look into. When you're kind of stage lean at that point, there's no reason to keep pushing. That's when you can introduce, a little bit more food and less cardio and things like that. The second prep that I'm thinking of is actually the year that I turned pro, which was 2022, and qualified for the Olympia that same year. So between when I turned pro and when I qualified for the Olympia, I think I had done 10 or 11 shows that season, and Olympia was number 12. When I won the Carolina Excalibur to get qualified for the 2022 Olympia, I had about 13 weeks between Excalibur and the Olympia. And it was just enough time to put on a little bit of body fat in reverse, and then really not enough time to cut back down. So we gave myself like 3 or 4 weeks of a diet break. I was really, really tired at that point, obviously, 10, 11 shows, and I was exhausted. My body was tired. So we reversed a little bit, probably added about 4 or 5 pounds. Then we needed to cut back down, which we did, but my body was being very stubborn at that point because, again, it was tired. We got to that Olympia, and I was not feeling right the night before the show. I was just feeling really off. And again, it's when you're sick versus being stage lean and depleted, they kind of feel the same. I went to bed that night and I sweat the entire night. And again, I didn't know if that was from feeding, from the carb up, because that can happen from the metabolism picking up, or if I was sick. I woke up, let's say I went to bed that night and I was around 118 pounds. And when I woke up, I was 114. And I knew that there was no coming back from that. I was way too flat. I felt awful. I was sick. And that was the year that all of us had COVID at the Olympia. So that was definitely a tough prep. And what I learned is, obviously just knowing when to push and when to pull back as an athlete. I think the athlete that can understand when to pull back, that's a really high skill, because as athletes or anybody that's listening to this, like we all do this because we love the challenge and we love to push ourselves, right? We're all type A personality. We all want to control everything. But, how many of us listening right now are like, oh my gosh, it's so hard for me to take a rest day. But the athlete that can learn to understand their body and when it's saying, hey, white flag, I need a moment, those are the athletes that continue to recover and grow hand over fist. I don't necessarily believe, like Drew always says all the time, in overtraining. I believe in not enough recovery. So when the body's asking for recovery, it's your time to give it and listen to it. This is a really good one and something that I talk about with athletes all of the time. The question is, what is a good pre-workout meal for someone who trains lots of hours, early a.m. morning, some days? So the first thing I'll say is you're probably training fasted right now because of how early that you train. I understand. I've been there before. We talked about this on a couple podcasts ago. I used to wake up at 3:30 in the morning, get ready, drive an hour to push, start my cardio, 2 hours, do a training session, eat, then I would go into training classes. So I've been there and I understand. However, now that I am an educated coach, I do know that this is not the best way or the most efficient way to time your nutrient timing if you are trying to build muscle. There's a couple of things that you can do here. So number one is if your coach gives you a pre or post-workout meal macro target, try to pick foods that are low in volume but high in calories. So things that are really simple, grab and go. So some examples that I give my athletes are overnight oats. It's cold, you could add a little bit of fruit to it. You can even add protein powder to it. So you have your carb source, you have your protein source if you add protein powder to it, or even drink a shake on the side. And then you can add a fat source like peanut butter, for example. So super easy, simple, grab and go. Couple of rice cakes with banana. Banana is a low volume, high caloric food. So for those of you that are like, oh my gosh, all these Team J athletes are posting bananas all the time. Those are my girls that have very high food but don't like to eat a ton of volume. So we give them a lot of bananas. Honey is a great high calorie, low volume source, and protein shakes. Something else that you could do as well that you could talk to your coach about, which is honestly something new that I'm learning, is perhaps not eating as much that early in the morning, bringing down what we wanted your pre-workout meal macros to be, but maybe forcing a little bit more food the night before into your last meal of the night, especially if you're waking up at like that 3:30, 4 a.m. hour. The window of you digesting and, kind of still having some of that glucose in your system is pretty small. So, trying to push just a little bit more carbohydrates and fats into that last meal of the night before you go to bed, and then reducing the amount of food that you take in right before you go train. That way it's not as high a volume. So you would have to play with your numbers there and, obviously talk to your coach, but those are a couple of recommendations for you. Something that I always say to my athletes too is you at one point became comfortable training fasted. And if you train your body, it will at some point get comfortable with eating this amount of food. It might not be sexy, the first few weeks. You might feel like you're force feeding, but the more that you push that food at that hour, eventually your body will adapt. Your body is a machine and it adapts to the stimulus that we give it. So, if you're somebody that maybe doesn't want to eat too much food before going to bed and you want to try to get it in that pre-workout meal, or if you're someone like me where you thrive with a good amount of food before a pre-workout, you feel the difference, well, then you might just have to force feed for a couple of weeks. And I know that's not the sexy answer, but that's the reality. That was the last question. So that was 10 questions that I answered for you guys. Thank you so much for submitting them. There was a few more in there. So I will continue to do these as much as I can. Obviously, as of today, we are 10 days out from the Arnold. where did that even come from? So today is Tuesday, March 18th. Tomorrow this video drops. And then come Saturday, we're going into peak week. Nikki has some very special content ready for you guys that is coming out next week as we, continue to get closer and closer to the Arnold. So I'm really excited for you guys to see it. And I appreciate all of you guys for being on the journey thus far. And hearing that you guys are enjoying this series means everything. So like I said, we're going to continue to keep them coming after the Arnold as well. I hope that you guys are having the best week. I hope that you're getting excited for the Arnold. I know I am, because I know that when Arnold starts, so does our season. So I'm sure all of you who are prepping, watching this on cardio, are getting extremely excited, because the 2025 season is about to get underway. And I know that I cannot be more excited, obviously for myself, but for my athletes that are getting ready to step on stage too, who are prepping and working really hard right now. So anyways, if you are someone who is watching this on cardio right now, keep it going. Good luck. And for everybody else, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you guys at the next one.